The council chamber stretched wide like an arena, filled with beings from 70 different worlds. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few glowed with their own light. Ambassador Han Jiho stood at the center platform, his hands clasped behind his back. He wore the formal uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, dark blue with silver threading. His face remained calm, but his heart beat fast. "The proposal is simple," Jiho said, his voice steady. "A marriage between myself and Princess Valera of the Talvexian Empire. This union will bind our peoples and prevent the war that threatens to consume 40 billion human lives." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some aliens clicked their approval. Others hissed their doubt. The Talvexians sat in their section tall and proud, their crystalline bodies refracting light into rainbow patterns. They said nothing, waiting. A voice cut through the noise like a blade. "I oppose this marriage," everyone turned. Kang Mirai stepped forward from the human delegation area. She wore the black uniform of Earth Security Forces, medals gleaming on her chest. Her face looked like Jiho's, the same strong jaw and determined eyes. She was his sister, Ambassador Mirai. The council chairman said, his tentacles waving in confusion. "This is unexpected. You represent human security interests. Surely you understand what war would mean." "I understand perfectly," Mirai said. She walked to the center platform, standing beside her brother. "I understand that the Talvexians raided our colonies for 3 years. I understand that 2,000 humans died in their attacks. I understand that they only offered this marriage after our fleets proved we could fight back." The Talvexian section stirred. Admiral Thexus rose, his crystalline form towering over the others. His voice came through translation devices, deep and resonant. "We raid no longer. We seek peace through honorable means. Does the human delegation mock our traditions?" "Your traditions demand our submission," Mirai shot back. "You dress it up as marriage, but it's a collar. You want us to bow because you can't break us in battle." Jiho touched his sister's arm gently. "Mirai, please," she pulled away. "No, you're my brother before you're an ambassador. I won't watch you sacrifice yourself for politicians who are too afraid to stand firm." The chairman's tentacles waved frantically. "This is most irregular. The human government approved this proposal." Ambassador Jiho volunteered. The princess accepted. "All protocols have been followed." "Protocols don't account for dignity," Mirai said. She turned to address the full council. "My brother is a good man. He was a soldier before he became a diplomat. He saved lives. He built bridges between worlds. And now you want to use him as a bargaining chip because it's easier than finding real peace." Princess Valera stood in the Talvexian section. She wore ceremonial robes that seemed to be made of liquid light, and her face was hidden behind an ancient veil that shimmered and bent the air around it. She had not spoken since the session began. Now her voice came through the translators, soft but clear. "The human speaks with passion." "Does she speak for all humans?" Mirai met the princess's hidden gaze. "I speak for those who believe strength means standing firm, not kneeling." "Then you misunderstand Talvexian tradition," Valera said. "This marriage is not submission. It is the highest honor. Only the worthy may join with our royal line. We offer this because we see potential in humanity, not weakness." "Pretty words," Mirai replied. "But words are cheap when backed by warships." The chamber erupted in arguments. Alien delegates shouted in dozens of languages. The translation devices struggled to keep up. The chairman called for order, but no one listened. Jiho raised his hand. "Enough." Something in his voice made everyone stop. He had not shouted, but the word carried weight. He looked at his sister with sad eyes. "Mirai, I know you're trying to protect me. You always have. When we were children and the older kids bullied me, you fought them. When I joined the military and you thought I was too gentle for combat, you followed me into service to watch my back. When I chose diplomacy over continuing as a soldier, you took command of security forces to make sure I'd always be safe." Mirai's jaw tightened. "Someone has to keep you alive. And someone has to keep 40 billion humans alive," Jiho said quietly. "That's more important than one man's comfort. More important than pride. If this marriage prevents war, then it's the right choice." "It's not right if it costs you everything," Mirai said, her voice breaking slightly. "It cost me one thing," Jiho corrected. "My freedom to choose my own path. But millions of humans will lose their lives, their families, their futures if war comes. I can do math, sister. One life for billions is an easy equation." Admiral Thexus spoke again. "The human ambassador shows courage. This is why we agreed to the marriage. Talvexians respect strength, yes, but we respect sacrifice more. A warrior who falls in battle is honored, but a leader who surrenders personal desire for their people's sake, that is the highest honor. Mirai turned on him. Don't pretend this is about honor. You're testing us. You want to see if humans will break under pressure? Well, here's your answer. We don't break. We don't bow. And we don't trade our best people for temporary peace. Then you choose war? Thexus asked. I choose to find another way, Mirai said. The chairman intervened. There is no other way. Both governments have agreed. The marriage will proceed in 3 days. These proceedings are concluded. The chamber began to empty. Delegates filed out in groups, whispering and clicking and humming to each other. The Talvexians left in formation. Princess Valira at their center, her veil still hiding her face. Mirai grabbed Jiho's arm. 3 days. That's all the time I have to stop this insanity. Mirai, no. She cut him off. You taught me never to give up when I was young. You told me there's always another option if you look hard enough. I'm looking, Jiho. I'm going to find a way to protect you and save those 40 billion lives. Both things. Not one or the other. Jiho watched his sister storm out of the chamber. He wanted to believe her. He wanted to think there was another path. But he had studied this situation from every angle. He had consulted with strategists, economists, cultural experts. Every simulation ended the same way, war or marriage. There was no third option. Dr. Park Hyunwoo approached, his datapad clutched in his hands. He was Earth's chief xenobiologist, a nervous man with brilliant eyes. Ambassador, I need to brief you on Talvexian biology before the ceremony. There are some complications. Complications? The marriage ritual involves telepathic bonding. It's permanent. You'll share memories and emotions with the princess for the rest of your life. I need you to understand what that means. Jiho nodded slowly. I'll be in my quarters in an hour. Prepare your briefing. He walked toward the exit, his footsteps echoing in the empty chamber. Behind him, unseen by any human, Princess Valira stood in a shadowed observation deck. She watched Jiho leave through the one-way glass. Her hand touched the window, and where her crystalline fingers pressed, the glass hummed with resonance. Impossible, she whispered to herself in her native language. Too quiet for translators. It cannot be him, but it was. She was certain, and in 3 days, she would stand before him without her veil and he would see her face. Then he would know. Then everything would change. She just hoped the truth wouldn't destroy them both. The ceremonial hall transformed over 2 days. Human workers hung banners of blue and white alongside Talvexian crystals that sang when light touched them. The floor became a bridge of polished stone, symbolic of 2 worlds meeting in the middle. Above, the dome showed the stars, real and visible through transparent steel. Jiho stood in his preparation room, adjusting the collar of his ceremonial uniform. Lieutenant Baek So-min stood nearby, checking her datapad with worried eyes. The security sweeps are complete, she said. No threats detected. But Ambassador, your sister has been meeting with council delegates all night. I don't know what she's planning. She's looking for alternatives, Jiho said. Let her look. She won't find any, but she needs to try. It's who she is. Dr. Park Hyunwoo entered, carrying medical scanners. Final check before the ceremony. The telepathic bond will happen fast once you and the princess touch hands. Your brain will experience things it's not designed for. There might be pain. How much pain? Unknown. No human has ever bonded with a Talvexian before. You're the first. Park ran his scanners over Jiho's head. Your neural patterns are strong. That's good. But Ambassador, once the bond forms, it's forever. You'll feel her emotions. She'll know your thoughts. There's no privacy anymore. Jiho smiled sadly. Privacy is a small price for peace, is it? Park asked quietly. You're giving up part of yourself. That's not small. Before Jiho could answer, alarms chimed. The ceremony was beginning. He walked through corridors filled with delegates from 70 worlds. They watched him pass, some with admiration, others with pity. He kept his head high. The ceremonial hall was packed. Thousands of beings filled the observation areas. At one end of the stone bridge stood Jiho. At the other end, a door opened and the Talvexian procession entered. Princess Valira walked at the center, surrounded by her honor guard. She stood 7 feet tall, her crystalline body catching light and throwing rainbows across the walls. The ceremonial veil covered her face, an ancient piece of technology that bent light and hid her features completely. Her robes flowed like liquid starlight. The Talvexian priest began chanting in their native language, deep sounds that resonated in everyone's chests. The translation devices remained silent. Some rituals were too sacred for outsiders to understand completely. Mireille watched from the security observation post high above. Her hands gripped the railing. Beside her stood Ambassador Lyris of the Veltrons, an empathic species with pale skin and large eyes. "You are in pain," Lyris observed gently. "Emotional pain. I'm watching my brother walk into a cage," Mireille said. "Of course I'm in pain. Is marriage a cage to humans? This marriage is. He doesn't love her. She doesn't love him. It's politics wearing a wedding dress." Lyris tilted her head, her empathic senses reading the emotional currents in the hall below. "I sense something else." "Fear from the princess?" "Not fear of your brother. Fear of what comes next," Mireille frowned. "What do you mean?" "I cannot tell. Her emotions are shielded by Talvexian telepathy, but the fear bleeds through. She dreads this moment." Down on the bridge, Jiho and Valira walked toward each other. Each step was measured, part of the ritual. The priest's chanting grew louder. Crystals around the hall began to sing in harmony. Admiral Thexus stood with the Talvexian delegation, his face unreadable. He had seen many ceremonies in his long life, but never one like this. Never a princess marrying an alien. Never a union that carried the weight of billions of lives. The translation devices finally activated as the ritual reached the crucial moment. A priest spoke. "The veil must be removed. The bond cannot form through barriers. The princess will show her face and the union will be sealed." Valira and Jiho stood 5 feet apart now, close enough to touch. The chanting stopped. Silence filled the massive hall. Thousands of beings held their breath. Valira's hands rose to the veil clasps. Her fingers, crystalline and delicate, trembled slightly. She unfastened the first clasp. Then the second. Then the third. The veil fell away. Princess Valira's face was crystalline like the rest of her body, but more delicate. Her features were sharp and beautiful in an alien way. Her eyes were large and multifaceted like jewels, catching light from every angle. They could see across multiple spectrums that humans couldn't perceive. Those eyes fixed on Jiho's face, and she stopped moving. 5 seconds passed. 10. 15. 20. She just stared at him, her body completely still, her eyes wide, her mouth slightly open. The silence stretched. The priests looked at each other in confusion. Admiral Thexus stepped forward, alarmed. This had never happened in thousands of years of tradition. The princess always spoke ritual words after revealing her face, always, "Your Highness," one priest said carefully. Valira didn't respond. She stared at Jiho like she was seeing a ghost. Jiho didn't know what to do. "Princess," he said softly, "are you well?" Her lips moved, but no sound came out at first. Then barely a whisper through the translation device, "It's you." "I'm sorry," Jiho said, confused. Valira's telepathic presence, normally contained and controlled, suddenly exploded outward. Every psychically sensitive being in the hall gasped. The air shimmered with energy. Humans felt it as pressure, as electricity crawling over their skin, as emotion made tangible and real. Up in the observation post, Lyris stumbled backward. "By the stars, what is that? Such intensity." The princess spoke louder now, her voice shaking. "Impossible. It cannot be. You cannot be here, and what's happening?" Jiho asked, taking a step toward her. "Stay back," Admiral Thexus commanded, but it was too late. Valira's legs buckled. Her crystalline body began to fall. Jiho's instincts took over. He lunged forward and caught her before she hit the ground. His arms wrapped around her, supporting her weight. The Talvexian guards rushed forward, weapons rising. They thought the human had attacked their princess. "No," Jiho shouted, holding Valira carefully. She collapsed. "I'm helping her." Mirai's voice boomed over the security channels. "All human forces, defensive positions. Do not fire unless fired upon." The hall erupted into chaos. Weapons were drawn on both sides. Delegates screamed and rushed for exits. The priests tried to restore order but failed. Dr. Park Hyunwoo ran forward, his medical scanner in hand. "Let me through. I'm a doctor." Admiral Thexus stood over Jiho, his weapon pointed down. "Release the princess, human." "She needs help," Jiho said, not letting go. He looked down at Valira's face, her eyes half closed. "Please, I know Talvexian first aid. Let me stabilize her." Thexus hesitated. How did a human know their medical procedures? But something in Jiho's voice rang true. Do it quickly. Jiho positioned Valera carefully, his hands finding the pressure points on her crystalline body that would regulate her energy flow. He had learned this long ago in another life for reasons he barely remembered. Valera's eyes fluttered open. She looked up at Jiho and her voice came out weak but clear, speaking Korean through her translator. You saved me before. Every translation device in the hall broadcast those words. Everyone heard. Jiho's face showed complete confusion. Before? Princess, we've never met until 3 days ago. We have, she insisted, her hand reaching up to touch his face. 10 years ago. You pulled me from death. You gave me life. Admiral Thexus lowered his weapon. What is she saying? Valera tried to sit up and Jiho helped her. She looked at the assembled crowd, then back at Jiho. The bond. We must complete the bond now. I must know if I'm right. I must see your memories. Princess, you're not well, the priest protested. The ceremony should be postponed. No, Valera said firmly. Now, it must be now. She extended her hand to Jiho. Do you consent? Jiho looked at her multifaceted eyes, at the certainty in her expression. He didn't understand what was happening, but he trusted his instincts. I consent. Their hands touched, light exploded between them. The telepathic bond ignited like a star being born. Energy visible to every eye raced up their arms, connecting them. Both gasped as memories flooded through the link. Valera's memory rushed into Jiho's mind. A young princess, barely 17, traveling in disguise through disputed space for diplomatic training. Her shuttle attacked by pirates. Guards killed. She was alone, terrified, bleeding luminous fluid from cracks in her crystalline form. Her escape pod drifted damaged near a human patrol route. She sent a distress signal knowing it might bring enemies. She was dying. She closed her eyes, accepting her fate. Then a face appeared at the pod's window. A young human in military uniform, his eyes wide with concern. He forced the door open. He pulled her out. He used emergency foam to seal her cracks. He held her, kept her stable, talked to her in words she couldn't understand but in a voice that promised safety. Jiho's memory flooded into Valera's mind. A young patrol officer, fresh out of training, detecting an alien distress signal. His commander ordered him to ignore it. They were in disputed space. Interference could cause an incident, but he heard the desperation in that signal. He thought of someone dying alone in the dark. He disobeyed orders. He found the pod, saw the injured alien inside and didn't see an enemy. He saw someone who needed help. He saved her. Medical ships arrived later and took her. He never learned who she was. He got reprimanded, nearly court-martialed. He never regretted it. The memories merged, overlapped, confirmed each other. Both relived that moment from both perspectives. Recognition crashed over them like a wave. Ambassador Lyris, watching from above, translated what she felt through her the medical bay hummed with equipment from a dozen worlds. Dr. Park Hyunwoo worked alongside Talvexian healers, their crystalline hands moving over diagnostic displays while human doctors monitored screens showing brain activity and energy patterns. Princess Valera lay on a specialized bed designed for her crystalline physiology, her body's light dimming slowly like a sunset fading into night. Jiho sat beside her, holding her hand. Through the bond, he felt her pain, a constant ache that pulsed with each beat of her crystallized heart. He also felt her fear, and underneath that, something else. Acceptance. You should let them sever the bond, Valera said quietly. You will live. That matters more. No, Jiho said simply. Physician Quethir, an elderly Talvexian healer, approached with grim features. His crystalline body was clouded with age, less bright than younger members of his species. Ambassador, I must explain the situation clearly. The resonance bond creates a feedback loop. Princess Valera's telepathic biology tries to maintain connection with you, but your human neural structure cannot reciprocate properly. The mismatch is fracturing her from within. Dr. Park leaned over his datapad, his face tired. In simpler terms, her body is trying to sync with yours, but your brain doesn't have the right parts. It's like trying to plug human electricity into alien outlets. The power goes nowhere and causes damage. How long does she have? Jiho asked. 3 days, perhaps 4, Quethir said. The only certain solution is severing the bond completely. A surgical procedure that will erase the shared memories and leave both of you emotionally scarred. But alive? Absolutely not, Jiho and Valera said together, then looked at each other through the bond and smiled sadly. There must be another way, Jiho insisted. Park hesitated. There's a theoretical possibility. If we could modify your brain to support basic telepathic structures, the feedback loop might stabilize. But it's never been attempted. The procedure could kill you, leave you brain dead, or change your personality completely. And if it works? If it works, the bond stabilizes and the princess lives. But Ambassador, the success rate is unknown. You'd be the first. You might be trading your life for hers. Jiho looked at Valera. Through the bond, he felt her protest forming. He spoke before she could. I saved her life once. I can do it again. Jiho, no, Valera said, her voice stronger than her body. I won't let you die for me. You don't have a choice, he said gently. The bond works both ways, remember? I feel what you feel. If you die, I'll feel that too. I'll carry it forever. I'd rather risk death trying to save you than live knowing I didn't. The medical bay doors burst open. Mirai strode in, her security uniform still crisp despite the long night. She took in the scene. Her brother beside the dying princess, doctors looking hopeless, and the weight of impossible decisions hanging in the air. Someone explain what's happening, she demanded. Park did, quickly and efficiently. Mirai listened, her face unreadable. When he finished, she turned to her brother. You're really going to do this? Risk brain death for an alien you barely know? I know her better than most people I've known for years, Jiho said. Through the bond, he shared everything with Valera. Memories, emotions, fears, dreams. And even if I didn't, it's the right thing to do. Mirai was silent for a long moment. Then she sighed, a sound of surrender and acceptance. You've always been like this. When we were kids, you gave your coat to a homeless man in the middle of winter. You nearly froze, but you smiled the whole way home because he was warm. I remember. You were furious. I was scared, Mirai corrected. Scared that your kindness would get you killed. And now here we are. She looked at the doctors. What do you need to make this procedure work? Wait, Valera said, struggling to sit up. Ambassador Mirai, you opposed this marriage. You said your brother shouldn't sacrifice himself. Why help now? Mirai met the princess's multifaceted eyes. Because I was wrong. I thought the marriage was politics. I thought you were using him. But you're not. You care about him. I can see it. And he cares about you, though he probably doesn't realize how much yet. She moved closer to Valera's bed. My brother is the best person I know. He sees people, not politics. He saw you dying in that pod 10 years ago, and he didn't see an alien or an enemy. He saw someone who needed help. That's who he is. And if he's decided you're worth saving, then you are. So I'm going to make sure he lives to see it through. Tears formed in Valera's eyes, crystalline droplets that caught the light. Thank you. Dr. Park organized the medical teams. He brought in Dr. Nam Yunji, the best neurosurgeon humanity had. She studied the scans of Jiho's brain, while Talvexian engineers prepared bioorganic interfaces that could bridge human and Talvexian neurology. The procedure will take 8 hours, Nam explained. We'll install neural interfaces at key points in your brain. These will allow your neurons to process telepathic frequencies without burning out. It's delicate work. One mistake and you won't wake up. I understand, Jiho said, do you? Nam asked. Because I need you to understand completely. Even if we succeed, you'll be changed. Your brain will process information differently. You might think differently. You might not be exactly the same person afterward. Jiho looked at Valera through the bond. He felt her fear for him, her desperate wish that he would choose safety. He also felt her love, growing stronger despite the pain, a warmth that made the risk worthwhile. I'll still be me where it matters, he said. The parts that make choices, that decide what's right, those will remain. The rest is just details. Lieutenant Bayek Soman entered with updates. The council is demanding information. Ambassador Lyris is helping manage the situation, but everyone wants to know if the marriage will proceed. Tell them the marriage already happened, Valera said. The bond formed. In Talvexian tradition, that is marriage. The ceremony is just formality. Mirai coordinated with the medical staff, her tactical training repurposed for organizing surgical teams. If this was a battle to save her brother, she would command it perfectly. The operation began 3 hours later. Jiho lay on the surgical table, surrounded by human and Talvexian medical equipment. Dr. Nam's hands were steady as she made the first incision. Talvexian engineers guided bioorganic interfaces into place, threading them through brain tissue with microscopic precision. Mireille stood in the observation gallery, watching every move. If something went wrong, if her brother's life signs failed, she would be there. She owed him that much. In her medical bed, connected by monitoring equipment, Valira felt everything through the bond. Every cut, every adjustment, every moment of Jiho's unconscious mind struggling to adapt. She tried to send strength through the connection, tried to be his anchor in the darkness. Hours passed. The surgical team worked in focused silence. Dr. Park monitored the feedback loop, watching as the modifications slowly changed the pattern. The mismatch was decreasing. The fracturing in Valira's crystalline structure began to slow. Then Jiho's heart stopped. Alarms screamed through the surgical bay. Dr. Nam's hands moved faster, injecting stimulants, shocking his heart. Seconds stretched like years. "Come on," Mireille whispered from the gallery. "Fight. You've never quit anything. Don't start now." Through the bond, Valira felt Jiho's presence flickering. She reached out with everything she had, her telepathic mind ignoring her own pain to call to him. "Come back, please, I can't lose you now." His heart restarted. The vital signs stabilized. The neural interfaces synchronized fully. The feedback loop collapsed into harmony. Dr. Nam leaned back, exhausted. It worked. By all the stars, it actually worked. In her bed, Valira gasped as the pain vanished. Her crystalline body began to glow brighter. The fractures healed. The bond settled into place, no longer consuming her but supporting her like two pillars holding up the same roof. They kept Jiho unconscious for another hour, letting his brain adjust to the changes. When they finally woke him, his eyes opened slowly. He looked around the surgical bay, taking in the equipment, the doctors, and finally his sister in the observation gallery. "Mireille," he said, his voice weak but clear. "I'm okay." She pressed her hand against the glass, tears streaming down her face. "You better be." Jiho felt something new in his mind, a presence warm and constant at the edge of his awareness. He turned his head, and even though he couldn't see her, he knew exactly where Valira was. He felt her relief, her joy, her overwhelming gratitude. "Is she all right?" he asked. "She's perfect," Dr. Park said, smiling. "The bond is stable. You both are going to live." They brought Jiho to Valira's room once he could walk. She stood when he entered, her full height restored, her crystalline body glowing with health. They looked at each other, and through the bond they shared everything, relief, joy, and something deeper that neither had words for yet. "You should have let me die," Valira said softly. "It would have been safer." "Safety is overrated," Jiho replied. "Besides, I made a promise 10 years ago. I saved you once." "I wasn't about to break my record," she laughed, a sound like crystals chiming. Then she moved forward and embraced him carefully. Through the bond, he felt what she couldn't say, that she had been alone for so long, carrying the weight of her people's expectations, never able to share her true self. And now she had someone who knew her completely, who chose her. The research began immediately. Jiho and Valira sat in a secured lab, surrounded by scientists from multiple worlds. Dr. Cho Minseo, a human specialist in ancient alien technology, examined the data extracted from Valira's hidden memories. She projected holographic images of the device that had been planted in the escape pod 10 years ago. "This technology doesn't match any known species in the galactic database," Minseo said, her fingers swiping through technical specifications. "The materials are at least 50,000 years old. Maybe older. Whatever placed this device in your pod wasn't from our current era." Jiho studied the hologram. Through the bond, he felt Valira's confusion mixing with his own, but it worked perfectly. It created a resonance bond between us. That takes precise knowledge of both human and Talvexian biology, which means whoever made this knew about our species before we even met each other, Valira added. They were planning this before humans joined the galactic community. Admiral Thexus stood at the back of the room, his crystalline arms crossed. Since the successful surgery, he had appointed himself as unofficial guardian of the bonded pair. Ancient technology, long-term planning, manipulation of royal bloodlines. This has the marks of the architects. Everyone turned to look at him. Lieutenant Bayek-Soman spoke up. "The architects? I thought they were myths." "Most do," Thexus said. "But Talvexian records go back 40,000 years. We have references to beings called architects who appeared during crisis points in galactic history. They never interfered directly. They just nudged things into place and watched what happened. Jiho felt a chill. You're saying someone has been manipulating galactic events for thousands of years? Not someone, came a new voice. Archivist Chenver entered the lab, his species' multiple eyes blinking in sequence. The Meridians were the record keepers of the galaxy, preserving knowledge across millennia. The architects are not individuals. They are a collective, and they only appear when the galaxy faces extinction-level threats. Chenver brought up holographic records, ancient texts in languages so old that translation required layered algorithms. Every 1,000 years or so, species across the galaxy experience what we call catalyst events, seemingly random incidents that force evolutionary leaps in cooperation. The last major catalyst was 7,000 years ago. 7 species that had been at war for centuries suddenly found common ground and united against an invasion from outside our galaxy. What kind of invasion? Valera asked. We don't know. The records are fragmented, but the united species survived something that would have destroyed them individually. After the crisis passed, the architects vanished again. Mirai had been listening from her security station. Now she spoke through the communication system. So you're saying these architects think we're facing another crisis? Something big enough that they're creating resonance bonds to force us to cooperate? It fits the pattern, Chenver confirmed. Dr. Park looked up from his medical data. There's something else. The resonance bond between Jiho and Valera is stable now, but it's also growing. The neural interfaces I installed aren't just passive receivers. They're adapting, becoming more sophisticated. It's like the bond is teaching his brain how to be telepathic. Is that dangerous? Jiho asked, unknown. But if the pattern continues, you might develop full telepathic abilities within months. And if you can do it, other humans might be able to as well. The bond could be a template. Valera gripped Jiho's hand. Through their connection, he felt her realization forming. That's why they chose us. Not just because we saved each other, but because our bond could show other species that such connections are possible. We're the proof of concept. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station. Lieutenant Bayek's voice came through urgently. Admiral, Ambassador, we have a situation. Long-range sensors are detecting massive spatial distortions at the edge of the system. Everyone rushed to the command center. The main display showed sensor readings that made no sense. Space itself was bending, folding, as hundreds of objects decelerated from faster-than-light travel. Ships, Mirai said, studying the patterns. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. They're using technology that makes our sensors struggle just to detect them. The unknown fleet arranged itself in a perfect sphere around the outer system. No weapons were charging. No threats were broadcast. They just waited. Then every communication device on Harmony Nexus activated simultaneously. The message came in a language so ancient that translation algorithms took several seconds to process it. When they did, the words appeared on every screen. The architects have returned. The trial begins. The council chamber filled within minutes. Delegates from 70 species shouted questions, demands, and fears. The chairman struggled to maintain order. Admiral Thexus mobilized Talvexian fleets while human naval forces jumped into the system. Every species with military capability prepared for potential combat. But the architect fleet didn't move. They waited in perfect stillness. Then a single ship detached from the formation. It was smaller than the others, but still larger than anything the current species had built. It approached Harmony Nexus slowly, broadcasting a narrow beam message. Jiho felt it through the bond first. A telepathic contact so powerful, it made his new neural interfaces burn. Valera gasped beside him, experiencing the same thing. The message bypassed all translation, speaking directly into their minds. Bonded pair. You are summoned. Come to our vessel. Alone. The council erupted again. Some demanded Jiho and Valera go immediately, believing the architects held answers. Others saw it as a trap. Admiral Thexus wanted to send a military escort. Mirai flatly refused to let her brother board an alien vessel without protection. Jiho and Valera stood apart from the chaos, communicating through their private bond. They shared thoughts at the speed of neurons firing, far faster than speech. In seconds, they reached a decision. We'll go, Jiho announced, but not alone. We'll take a small delegation. Ambassador Mirai as security chief, Dr. Park Hyunwoo as science advisor, and Ambassador Lyris as witness. If the architects want to talk, they'll accept these terms. The architect ship responded immediately. Acceptable. Prepare for transport. An hour later, Jiho stood in the shuttle bay with his small team. Mirai checked her equipment for the third time, her security training making her paranoid about unknowns. Dr. Park clutched his medical kit like a lifeline. Ambassador Lyris radiated calm, her empathic nature making her the most composed of the group. Remember, Mirai said to her brother, if anything feels wrong, you signal me. I don't care if they're ancient or powerful. I'll get you out. I know, Jiho said, embracing her briefly. But I don't think they mean us harm. Through the bond, the message felt curious, like they want to understand us as much as we want to understand them. Valira nodded in agreement. I sense the same. They're testing us, yes, but not with hostility, with interest. The shuttle launched, crossing the distance to the architect vessel. As they approached, the ship's scale became apparent. It was kilometers long, made of materials that seemed to exist partially in other dimensions. The hull rippled with colors that didn't have names. A docking port opened. The shuttle entered. When the delegation stepped out, they found themselves in a corridor that defied physics. The walls showed scenes from a billion worlds, moments in time playing simultaneously. The floor was transparent, revealing machinery below that looked more like living organs than technology. Stay close, Mirai said, her hand near her weapon. They walked forward, following lights that seemed to know where they should go. The corridor shifted around them, and suddenly they stood in a vast chamber. At its center sat the Council of Architects. They were not what anyone expected, not beings of pure energy or crystalline perfection. They looked almost disappointingly normal, humanoid shapes with variations. Some had features similar to Talvexians, others resembled species long extinct. One looked almost human. The one who looked human spoke first, and this time words came through normal sound, translated by devices in the chamber. Welcome, bonded pair. Welcome, witnesses. We are the architects, as you call us. We prefer to think of ourselves as gardeners. Gardeners? Jiho asked. We plant seeds and watch them grow. Sometimes we prune branches that grow wrong. Sometimes we add nutrients when soil is poor. But we do not create the garden. We only tend it. Another architect spoke, this one with features similar to Valira's species. You have questions. We will answer 3. Choose wisely. Jiho and Valira conferred through the bond. Then Jiho spoke aloud. Why did you create the resonance bond between us? We did not create it, the first architect said. We enabled the possibility. Your species, human and Talvexian, have compatible neural structures if properly bridged. The device we placed merely ensured you would meet under circumstances that would trigger natural bonding. The bond itself formed because you chose it. We cannot force such connections. Valira asked the second question. What trial are you talking about? What threat does the galaxy face? The architects gestured to the walls of the chamber. Images appeared showing space itself, the fabric of reality. Cracks ran through it like fractures in glass. Entropy accelerates in this region of space, an architect explained. Every 10,000 years, the universe experiences decay. Matter becomes unstable. Energy dissipates, life ends. We architects cannot stop it. The council chamber had never been so full. Representatives from every known species crowded the space, with thousands more watching through holograms. Jiho and Valira stood at the center platform, hands joined, their resonance bond visible as a faint shimmer of light between them. They had requested this emergency session to share what the architects had told them. The silence was absolute as they explained. The entropy collapse, the 3-year deadline, the need for resonance bonds across the galaxy. When they finished, the chamber exploded into shouting. Madness, declared a delegate whose species valued isolation. You ask us to surrender our minds to aliens. We ask nothing, Valira responded calmly. We present facts. The entropy will come whether you accept it or not. The bonds offer survival. But the choice is yours, Admiral Thexis stood. The Talvexian Empire will establish voluntary bonding programs immediately. We have seen the proof. Ambassador Jiho and Princess Valira demonstrate that different species can connect while maintaining their identities. If it works for them, it can work for others. Mirai addressed the council next. Humanity will do the same. But let me be clear, this will be voluntary. We will not force anyone into bonds. We will simply make the opportunity available and let people choose. Dr. Park presented scientific data. The neural interface technology we developed for Ambassador Jiho can be adapted for other species. It's safe, tested, and effective. We're already training medical teams to perform the procedures. Ambassador Lyris spoke with her empathic authority. I have read the emotions of the bonded pair. They are not controlled. They are not enslaved. They are simply more aware, more connected. This is evolution, not invasion. Over the following weeks, the response was mixed. Some species embraced the bonding programs immediately. Others remained suspicious. But enough volunteers stepped forward to begin the process. Jiho and Valira traveled to dozens of worlds, demonstrating their bond publicly. They stood before crowds and opened their connection, letting empathic species read the truth of what they shared. People saw that Jiho remained distinctly human, while understanding Talvexian perspectives. Valira remained entirely herself while comprehending human thinking. The first successful cross-species bond after theirs was between a human engineer named Odehan and a Veltran scientist. The second was between a Talvexian soldier and a Meridian scholar. Each success made the next easier. Volunteers increased, but not everyone agreed. 6 months into the program, opposition forces organized. They came from species across the galaxy, united by fear of change. Talvexian separatists joined with human supremacist groups. They called themselves the Preservation Movement, and they believed the bonds would erase individual species' identity. The attacks began small. Protests outside bonding centers, propaganda spreading through communication networks. Then they escalated. A bonding clinic on a human colony was bombed. 3 people died, including a bonded pair who had been helping others through the process. Mireille coordinated security across multiple worlds, but the opposition was too spread out, too determined. Admiral Thexus found himself fighting his own people, Talvexians who saw the bonds as a betrayal of pure crystalline heritage. Dr. Park worked endlessly to improve the safety of the neural interfaces, trying to reduce any risk that might feed the opposition's arguments. Lieutenant Bayek Soman organized protection details for prominent bonded pairs who became targets. Jiho and Valira continued their work despite the danger. Through their bond, they developed something new: the ability to sense other bonded pairs across vast distances. The network was forming, invisible threads of connection spreading through space. One night as they rested in their quarters on Harmony Nexus, Valira felt something shift in the bond. It's growing faster now. Can you feel it? Jiho nodded. He could sense hundreds of bonds now, maybe thousands, all connected in a web of understanding. The bonds are linking to each other, creating a greater network. The architects predicted this. One bond creates a template. That template spreads and amplifies. But the opposition was spreading too. A year into the program, a major attack struck Harmony Nexus itself. Preservation Movement forces tried to destroy the main bonding facility. Security forces stopped them, but not before significant damage was done. Mireille met with Jiho afterward, her face grim. The violence is increasing. People are dying. Maybe we're moving too fast. We don't have time to move slowly, Jiho said. The entropy collapse is accelerating. The architects warned us. Then maybe the architects were wrong. Maybe some things can't be rushed. Valira touched Mireille's arm gently. You're afraid, not of the bonds, but of losing your brother to something you can't protect him from. Mireille pulled away. Of course I'm afraid. I've watched him change over the past year. The neural interfaces, the constant connection with you, the network growing in his mind. He's not exactly the same person anymore. Am I worse? Jiho asked quietly. Mireille looked at him for a long moment. No, you're not worse. You're just different, and I don't know how to protect someone who's becoming something I don't fully understand. Through the bond, Valira felt Jiho's pain at his sister's words. She also felt his understanding. Change was frightening, even positive change, especially for those who loved you. 18 months into the program, the entropy began to manifest visibly. Scientists detected increasing instability in the fabric of space. Stars flickered. Planets experienced temporal anomalies. The deadline was real and it was approaching. The visible proof changed many minds. Volunteers flooded the bonding centers. Species that had been resistant began to reconsider. The network expanded exponentially, but it wasn't enough. Dr. Cho Min-seo ran calculations and delivered devastating news to the Council. At the current rate, only 30% of the galaxy's population would be bonded before the collapse. The remaining 70% would face the entropy alone, likely to their extinction. We need to accelerate the cascade, Minseo explained. The network needs to reach critical mass. If enough bonds form and link together, the resonance effect could spread naturally, making new bonds easier and faster. How many bonds do we need? Admiral Thexus asked. Unknown, but we're not at the threshold yet. Jiho felt something through his connection to the growing network, an idea that wasn't entirely his own, but came from the collective understanding of all bonded pairs. He looked at Valera, and through their bond she understood immediately. No, she said aloud. Jiho, no. It's too dangerous. What is? Mirai demanded, Jiho explained. The bonds are all connected to each other in a network. Valera and I are at the center, the first bond, the template. If we amplify our connection, link it directly to the architect's technology, we could become a nexus. A central point that every bond connects through. It would accelerate the cascade dramatically. At what cost? Dr. Park asked, though his expression suggested he already knew. We would have to surrender our individual consciousness, Valera said quietly. Merge completely with the network. We wouldn't die, but we wouldn't be separate people anymore either. We'd become part of something larger. The room fell silent. Mirai's face went pale. You're talking about sacrificing yourself again. Not sacrifice, Jiho said. Transformation. I'll still exist, just in a different form, and it would save trillions of lives. No, Mirai said firmly. There has to be another way. There isn't, Valera said gently. We've run every calculation. The cascade needs a catalyst, something powerful enough to push it over the threshold. Two bonded individuals willingly merging into a nexus would provide that power. Mirai looked at her brother with tears in her eyes. You've already given up so much. Your career, your freedom, your humanity in some ways. How much more can you sacrifice? Jiho took his sister's hands. I'm not losing myself. I'm becoming more. Can you understand that? Through his bond with Valera, he let Mirai feel what they felt. Not fear or resignation, but anticipation. Not death, but expansion. Not ending, but beginning. Mirai wept, but she nodded. I hate this, but I understand. The procedure was scheduled for the following week. The architects returned to Harmony Nexus, bringing the technology needed to create a nexus bond. Scientists from every species worked together to prepare. On the final day, Jiho stood with Mirai in his quarters. She had been quiet all morning, her military composure barely holding. Promise me something, she said finally. Anything. Promise me that even as part of this network, you'll still be my brother, that I can still reach you somehow. Jiho embraced her. Always, the bond doesn't erase who I am. It just expands it. You'll always be able to find me. Just think of me, and through the network I'll be there. Valera joined them, and the three stood together. Sisters and brother human and Talvexian, family by blood and by choice. In the ceremonial chamber, thousands watched in person while billions observed through broadcasts. Jiho and Valera walked to the center, where architect technology waited. A sphere of light that pulsed with the rhythm of every bonded pair in the galaxy. They joined hands for the last time as separate individuals. Through their bond, they shared final private thoughts. Gratitude for finding each other, love that transcended species, and readiness for what came next. I'm afraid, Valera admitted silently through tea.